Hey guys, this is Red and Blue, and it is time. It is time to talk about Newcastle. The Champions League is back, and it is the final game, the final battle of this year's group stage at home against Newcastle to seal the deal and confirm our spot in the top 8 in a game that should be pretty exciting, should be pretty interesting, and there's quite a few things to talk about. So let's just jump right in. PSG Newcastle. Last game of this year's group stage of the Champions League in the Parc des Princes on Wednesday night. And a game, honestly, should be pretty exciting, pretty interesting. It's always a challenge when you're playing against English team, and I think versus a team like Newcastle, anything really can happen. We've got a history, obviously, with them, having played them in the group stage 2 years ago, where they trounced us in St. James Park. If you remember, we lost 4-1 over there. I think it was the first game of Luis Enrique in the Champions League with PSG. And then we managed a last-minute draw on a dodgy penalty on the return in Paris. 1-1, which essentially helped us qualify for the next stage of the Champions League that year. And so I think for us there's experience there, there's a score to settle. I think we'll want to show them that we've progressed since then, and more importantly, we need a win to confirm our spot in the top 8. Ideally, go further up than our current ranking in the Champions League, because every spot that we can gain might bear advantages for us in the next rounds. So we do want to finish as high up as possible. And I think I think this Newcastle team, it's a great example of no game in the Champions League is going to be easy, and at the same time we're definitely we've got more advantages on paper than they do. But that said, I think it's going to be tight. I think it's going to be hard, and I think it's going to be a great Champions League game. So the question for me, I think, going into this game is really in terms of the battle of midfield, because there's a lot of uncertainties on both sides, and I think in terms of which player will be available, I think for both teams this is really the common room of both teams, and both teams are coming into these games with players who might be missing. So on the PSG side, João Neves is back in training, but he's missed the last 3 games. So question mark as to whether he would start this game. Fabian Ruiz, that came out limping against Sporting Portugal a week ago. There's very much a question mark as to whether he'll be available for this game at all. And then the question mark will be whether Hakimi slots back as right back, which would then allow Zaire to move back into midfield. All of those are question marks. Vitinha should still be there because Vitinha is always there. Vitinha always plays anyway. But obviously, that's a lot of uncertainty as well. On the Newcastle side, they're in a fairly similar situation for them. Bruno Guimaraes, who's their franchise player, top player, and fantastic midfielder, went out injured in their last Champions League game against PSV last week, and he hasn't played this weekend against Aston Villa. In that Aston Villa game, their other Brazilian midfielder, Joelinton, came out injured, and so it's also unclear whether he's going to be available for the Paris game. And finally, the third man in their midfield, Sandro Tonali, came out limping at the end of the game against Aston Villa. So he didn't really get subbed, or he didn't really come out injured or anything. But he was clearly at the end of his life at the end of the game against Aston Villa. And so very much a question mark as to whether what kind of shape he'd be in, and if he's going to be available for this PSG game. And I think in the end, I think the Champions League, we typically say it's a competition where you have to be clinical in both areas, on the offensive side and on the defensive side. But at the same time, top level football, we know the importance of midfield. We know the importance of being able to dominate games, and how much especially for PSG, that's our plan and the Luis Enrique philosophy of it. And so we do want to go into this game and be able to take our mark, dominate the midfield, and then use that to put ourselves in a position of strength. The good news for PSG is that I think defensively we're in a good place. Nuno Mendes, Pacho, and Marquinhos, who all didn't play against Auxerre this weekend, are going to be back. So they had a week to rest since our last game. Hakimi, like I said, is back from AFCON. Question mark as to whether he starts or not. It's not entirely clear what kind of physical condition he's in at the moment. And it's also like not entirely clear what kind of mental condition he's in. Because obviously he was the captain of this Morocco team who lost in the final of AFCON. This AFCON that they were hosting in Morocco, that they were like uber favorites to win, and where they had so much pressure to win it. He also rushed back to play the competition after his injury earlier this season against Bayern. So it's very much a question of, is he like mentally and physically in a shape to play this game? Or at the very least, is it worth the risk? Because even if he's not 100%, like it might be good for him to be playing the game just so he can put AFCON behind him. It might be good for him to play the game so he can get back into the rhythm of the competition, get back to his PSG teammates. It might be good because, like I said, it might free up Warren Zaire-Emery to move further up the pitch. So for me, like, I kind of hope and anticipate that he will play because if we know anything about Hakimi, is that he's a machine and he can play every time and he wants to play every time. So I do expect him to want to play. He did play the full final of AFCON, all the way to the extra time, all the way to the penalties. No, not penalties. Like, sorry, Senegal won it on extra time. So, like, all the way to the end of extra time. So yeah, I think physically should be able to, and I think it's worth like taking, even if it's taking a slight risk with him, because we can save ourselves 2 extra games to be played in February. I think we want to go into this game with as much strength as we can possibly get. So my personal opinion would be that we go in with a defense of our usual back four, really, our Champions League winning back four of Nuno Mendes, Pacho, Marquinhos, and Hakimi. Chevalier in goal because Safonov is still not entirely back, even if he's back in training. Don't expect him to be available for this game. And then in midfield, we would be able to have Vitinha, João Neves, and Warren Zaire-Emery, which is really a strong midfield. And then up front, question mark, obviously, like we always have 4 players for 3 spots. Probably like our usual front 3 of Vara, Dembele, Doué. But question mark between Doué and Barcola. For all of the noise around like Barcola lack of finishing, is still a very interesting player to have in the ability to create space and to run into spaces, versus Doué, who's been not at his top level in the past few games. So we know Luis Enrique loves Doué, so I give him a slight edge, but not entirely impossible to see Barcola start in this game. We'll have to see what Luis Enrique has in mind. And, obviously it is Luis Enrique, so entirely possible that we wake up with a 3 at the back and Zabarni playing instead of Hakimi, Mayulu in midfield, Gonzalo Ramos up front. You never know with Luis Enrique, that's the beauty of it. But my sense is that for this game, we'll want as close as possible to our full strength starting 11 as we possibly can. Like I said, like really the goal is to get the win and rubber stamp our access straight into the first knockout round without the extra intermediary round to get into it. So that's kind of what's going on for PSG. For Newcastle, so like I said, also a lot of uncertainty. They've got Pope in goal, Trippier on the right, a really strong central defense of Thio and Botman, Hall on the left, who's also a really good player. Their midfield, right now, it's looking like tentatively Miley, Tonali, and Ramsey. who is formerly of Aston Villa, and then a line of attack of Harvey Barnes on the right, probably Wissa, who's played the last couple of started the last couple of games for them, in number 9 position, and then Anthony Gordon on the left, who's also a very, very good player. Always the possibility of their summer recruit Voltemade coming in as number 9. But I would say right now probably not the top option for them. So it is, like I said, like it is a team of Newcastle that has a lot of strengths, that's been relatively stable for the last few years. Not so much by choice, but also because of all of the constraints of financial fair play, both in England and at European level. And so they do have players who've been there for a while. They've added a few players here and there, like Thio, who came from AC Milan, like Ramsey, like Voltemade, even Wissa. So there are players that came in since the last time we met them. But overall, it's been a relatively stable team. And I think it's a team that, has talent, but, there's specific spots which are like really doubtful against PSG. So Pope, their goalkeeper, is a great goalkeeper. He's like a Champions League level goalkeeper, but under pressure, he can be rattled as well. So what could happen then? Trippier, who is their captain on the right, is 35 years old. So what happens when you put him against a Guevara or a Barcola or a Doué? It might be a difficult night for him. Their midfield, obviously Tonali is a world-class player and one who could slot into this PSG team, but we don't know what kind of physical shape he's going to be in. And then Miley and Ramsey are probably like one step below what you get from a Joao Neves or a Warren Zaire-Emery. So I definitely could see this battle of midfield going all way. So and I think up front, Gordon is a top player. Voltemade is interesting, but if you compare with Dembele, Kvara, I mean, like on paper, I think it goes our way. The reality is that our players have been, a bit inconsistent, not necessarily all at their top level. So there is always that element of uncertainty, and I think it comes back to the things that I was talking about before Sporting Lisbon, which is, do we get the Ligue 1 PSG or do we get the Champions League PSG? Because if we get the teams that stomped Atalanta, the teams that stomped Tottenham at home, the teams that went on to win in Barcelona, then I think this is a game that should go our way. But if we get the teams that got beat in Lisbon, that got held to a draw in Bilbao, it could always be difficult, and there's always room. Obviously, Newcastle is a top-notch team, and they're the kind of team where they're not necessarily the most consistent of performers, but they do have enough talent to be able to beat pretty much anyone in Europe on any given night. If they turn up, if they really turn on the pressure, if things go a little bit their way, yes, they do have enough talent to really pose problems to us. They've got a top-notch coach as well, so we should be careful and not fearful, but very aware of what we're stepping into. I think the good news that obviously, like I said, we played them 2 years ago, and we had two very difficult matches against them 2 years ago. So I don't think it's escaped anyone notice, and a lot of our players were already there. So Dembele was there, Vitinha was there, Marquinhos obviously was there, Nuno Mendes and Hakimi were there, Warren Zaire-Emery was already there. So I think, for a lot of players, this might be the opportunity to settle the score a little bit and go, hey guys, 2 years ago, things were rough for us, but we're not the same team anymore. We're champions of Europe now. We found our balance as a team and our playing style as a team. And, we're ready to show you how we dominated literally every English team that came across our path last year. Barring Chelsea in the Club World Cup, obviously. But if we turn up this kind of performance, obviously, I think the game is ours. And I think, in this matchup, Newcastle doesn't really have anything to lose, but at the same time, they don't really, we've got more to lose than they do, in the sense that, if we get, don't get the win and we end up, not being in the top 8, I mean, what goes on, we're still like qualified to the next round, so it's not the end of the world by any means, but it will certainly be a disappointment, and I think people will be talking about it. Versus Newcastle, if they lose in Paris, they end up right outside of the top 8. They were a tier 4 team when the start of this competition. They sit 9th in the Premier League right now. Like, it's not the end of the world for them. So they can come into this game with very, very little pressure, and very little expectations going their way. So that's good for them, I guess. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting game. Honestly, like, I think it could be a very close one. And I think the drama of the last day of the group stage of the Champions League with this new format, where all the game being played at the same time, with so many teams moving on top of each other, just on the count of like one goal somewhere, goal differences, small bits of results, and so on. There's a lot of drama. And so I think it's gonna be a really fun night. It's gonna be interesting. I do hope we get away with the win. I'm like, honestly, I'll give you my perspective and my prediction now. I'm at the point where I really want this PSG team to have a major performance in the game. We've had bits and pieces. Honestly, I think like the team is on. I've been saying it, and I feel like I'm a little bit alone in saying it. But I feel like this team has been on an upward trajectory since Jan. We've got games that we control a lot more. We manage our gegenpressing is really getting back to top level. We've got players who are also getting back to top level. We've got players coming back from injury as well. So it's like all of those little pieces need to click together so we can have, a statement win like we had last year against Man City, that we had after against Stuttgart, that we had after against Brest, and start this roll of we're back and we're coming for it. We're coming for everything. We're coming for Liga and we're coming from the Champions League, and we are back to being the top team that impressed Europe so much and world football last season. So I do hope that this game, I'm honestly not entirely sure that it's going to be the case, because I feel like for a few things it's a bit early. So I don't expect Hakimi on his first game back to be at his top level. I don't expect João Neves after missing his 3 games to be at his top level. We're still missing Fabian Ruiz. We still have question mark in terms of our attackers and their ability to convert chances or even to create big chances. So I do think it's a game where like it could happen because there's going to be drama, because it's Champions League, it's a big night, it's at home. So it could definitely happen. And like, the Man City game last season, no one really saw it coming beforehand. I mean, there were signs, but it wasn't really obvious to much of anyone. So it could be the same here. I think in the end, like, generally, like in my predictions, I tend to try to be quite bold just for the fun of it. I think in this case, I would say like a 2-1 win for Paris. But yeah, in my heart of hearts, I hope I hope for a 4-2 or 4-1 or like a statement. Like they beat us 4-1 2 years ago at their place, so I want the 4-1 back. I think there's an outside chance that it could happen. But yeah, like let's be mindful and say like, yeah, 2-1. If we get the win, I'll be happy, which I feel like I'm saying with every game. But if we get the win, I'll be happy. And yeah, then like depending on the circumstances of the game, and it's really hard to forecast. So that's my prediction for it. And it's gonna be really interesting. I'll probably jump back and do another video tomorrow before the game once we've got a better sense of which players are going to be available or not on both sides, because I think, like I said, that's going to make a big difference, especially in midfield. So we'll have more information then. But for now, this is what we know about this clash. Super exciting. The last game of the group stage of this year Champions League. PSG Newcastle this Wednesday night. Let me know in the comment what's your prediction for this game, what's your expectation for it, what's your level of excitement as well going into this game. And obviously, if you've made it this far, as always, drop a like, massively helps. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Hit the bell to get notified of future videos. And don't forget, as always, ici c'est Paris!